Welcome to my little corner of the universe. If you're new to the channel, my name's Paul, and this is my first ever live stream. I'm thinking that if it goes all right, then I might do these on a regular basis and call them live stream Fridays. So today I thought I was thinking we could have a little get together where you could ask me questions. I could show you some Blender tips and tricks, as well as take a look at the new Blender 2.91 and see how it compares to Blender 2.79. In particular, in relation to booleans. Regular viewers will know that I prefer the boolean operations in Blender 2.79, and I'm not a fan of the B-mesh boolean modifier. But it looks like they may have done some work in Blender 2.91 and readdress those Boolean issues. So I thought we'd take a look at that. As well, I thought I could show you what I'm currently working on, some of my recent 3D print results. I'll also answer a couple of questions from older videos, in particular questions about my enclosure and if I still use it today, and any modifications I've made. I'll also discuss feeler gauges for leveling your bed and why I still think they're important, and overall have a chat about the 3D industry as a whole, and where I see it going and what my plans are. So I'm just going to have a look to see that the stream is going. Yes, it's good, it's going. I suppose the first thing I would like to talk about is perhaps we'll have a look at some questions regarding my enclosure from one of my older videos, and that enclosure looks like this. Now you'll have to bear with me, this is the first time I've ever done a live stream, so I've spent the last couple of days madly trying to learn how to live stream and set everything up. Hopefully I've got it set up so it works smoothly. So I've got, just so a bit of a background of how I've set it up, I've got this host cam here, the webcam. I've also got a parts cam, which I can show you some of the things I've been working on and have a look through there. And I can also show you my desktop. This is the enclosure, and drop myself in and explain to you things and show me working in the Blender interface and yeah, just do a few things like that. So yeah, that's how I've got it set up. So what I think I'll do is first we'll talk about my enclosure. Now, I bought my first 3D printer 3-4 years ago, and it was a Cocoon Create model maker. So it was a small printer. I think the bed size was about 150 by 150 by 150 from memory, somewhere around there. And then I actually built this enclosure for that printer because I was getting a lot of fumes. I had it just sitting here beside me in my work area, and I was getting a lot of fumes coming off that printer that were irritating my throat, making me cough, and so I decided to build an enclosure. Now, I'm very, very much one for using what you've got rather than buying new materials or new parts or new equipment. And we had a pergola built off the side of the house, and there was a sheet of polycarbonate left over from that pergola, and so I turned that sheet into an enclosure for my 3D printer, which is this enclosure here. Now, originally this enclosure was built for a much smaller 3D printer, and I upgraded the printer about 12 months after I got my first one to the Cocoon Create Touch 3D printer. And so I had to shoehorn it into the enclosure and make some modifications. and you can see here that on the top of the enclosure, the spool holder actually protruded through the top when I put the larger printer in, and so I made a little box to go over the top of the spool holder, and that's where the filament will protrude through there. And then I also had to make a few modifications where the tray, the bed of the printer was hitting the walls and the edges, and so I had to cut some flaps into the front of the printer and the back, which I'll show you in a tick. But here you can see the area where the spool goes, and this actually works out pretty well because the heat of the printer is contained. I've got a few areas where it can get some ventilation, but the heat's contained and it collects up in that spool holder, and so when it's 0 degrees at night and it's printing, then the air can collect up, and warm air can collect up in there and keep that filament warm. And you can see here, this is the little flap that I've put into the front of the enclosure, and yeah, so when it comes through, it just pushes it out the way, and that's just Gorilla Tape I've used to seal up and join all the pieces together. It's very strong, it's clear, and yeah, it's working really well. And so as a slot for the back of the printer, I just checked my audio. I had a horrible thought that I hadn't turned my microphone on, but I have. So there's a slot on the back of the printer, and overall, like I've even though I've now moved the printer out to the garage because we have a 2-year-old granddaughter now, and I don't want her breathing in those fumes from the printer, so I do all my 3D printing in the garage. And the enclosure has worked fantastically for those really cold nights. I keep the enclosure on, and the warmth stays in, and my parts are stuck to the bed and not warping, although I did have one warp just recently. And this is the slot you can see here where it draws cool air in under the 3D printer where the electronics are, and then comes up and is exhausted out this vent here. And I have 2 just computer fans on there which pull the air out, and it works really well. The print I'll show you in a minute, which I did have an issue with warping, was the first time in years. Now this is a uninterrupted power supply I have attached to it, so if you've ever done a print, you've been printing for 10 hours and the power here doesn't cut off, it just flicks off for a second, and when it does, I lose my my print, and that's it. I've got to start again. So what this does is just catches those little brief dropouts or brownouts that you might have, and I wouldn't print without it now. It's super valuable. But I'll show you that this is the print that I had the issue with, and I'll show you on my parts cam what happened. Just pull this stand off. So the part you can see here, I'll line this up, I've got a gap here and a gap here, and it was printed in this orientation, so imagine that's the bed, and it just warped here and here, and I'm wondering if that's because of the shape of the part itself, in that it I don't know, just something about the shape that caused it to warp. I did do my process of isopropyl alcohol to clean the bed before printing and things like that, and yeah, it was just one of those prints that just lifted. So I think in future I've never used glue sticks or anything like that to print. It's just level the bed properly and wipe it clean with isopropyl alcohol, and it's always worked fine. So yeah, I don't know what happened with that particular one. Or by the way, if you are interested in looking for these models. I have a heap of free models over at printverygood.com where you can go and download them. They're all free. I think there's about 80 models there at the moment. So head over there and check it out. I think you will be happy with what I've got there, and I'll also be uploading more over the next 6 months or so as I'm doing them. So that's free models at printverygood.com. Now, what I also wanted to show you was, while we're on the free models, is another model that I created just recently, and you can find this available as a free model as well over at printverygood.com, and that's Spock from Star Trek. So I've just painted him up, and I've got him here. And printverygood.com is basically my blog, where I just post updates of what I'm working on and share all my files and share everything through there. So if you want to keep abreast of what's going on over there, then definitely head over to printverygood.com and check that out. Now, I'm just going to have a little look at my rundown. I might just quickly talk about how I set this up here. So, as I said, I like to use whatever I've got to make something happen. So I'm using my Surface Book as a second monitor to display OBS. I'm using OBS to do the stream, and I can also display YouTube, what's happening over there. And I can see I've got 3 viewers, which is awesome. I was hoping I wouldn't get many viewers for this stream because there's likely things to go wrong. So Tinko Z, hi, how you going? I'm wondering if you're from South America somewhere. If you let me know where you're from, that'd be awesome. So so to set up the stream, I'm using my Surface Book, and with Windows, what you can do is use your tablet or any Windows device as a second monitor without actually plugging it into the computer. And so it's just a simple process of, if you come over here, let me just switch to my desktop. So if you come over to your desktop and come over to this section over here and click connect, then you can connect your monitors through this system and project your display onto a second monitor. So that's what I've done there. And with the this parts cam, which I've got set up here, this is just my mobile phone, and you can see I'm just Skyping in to myself. I've just set up a separate email account for the streams, and then Skyping to myself, and then I can use my phone as a second camera, and I think it's working pretty well. I've got the chat here, but it's not appearing in my stream, so I'll have to just switch from one to the other. I'll get these little teething issues worked out. Argentina, awesome. I see on my stats there's someone from Argentina is visiting my site and grabbing my files, and so welcome to my stream. Hopefully you'll find it enjoyable and of value, which is most importantly what this is all about. So now, while I've got the parts cam up, I'll show you something else that I've been working on, which is also available as a free download on my my website, my printverygood.com, and this is a Lambda craft from Star Wars, and I just wanted to do a simple stylized version of it, which have the wings that print in place. And there's also an arm and a stand that comes with this model, and the hinges are actually printed in place on the bed. And it took, oh boy, it took a while to get that working right. I had this little piece here. You can see I ended up just printing little sections like this. Don't know if that'll focus. There we go. So that I can just test the tolerances. Where are we? Just test the tolerances and clearances to make sure that that it worked. Where's the camera? There we go. I'll get it lined up. And so, yeah, I did quite a few test prints to get that working, but now it's working very nicely. So, and what I did was to taper, sort of made a cone shape. Actually, what I'll do, I'll show you. I'll do a little sketch. Probably the easiest way. I'm just being mindful not to make too much noise because the microphone's just here and that could be a bit annoying. So the hinge, if I go this way, all right. So the hinge is a piece like this, and then it's just simply a cone shape on each end, and it mates up to a cone shape on the inside of the part. So the problem I was having was the cone shape worked well, but the tolerances, if I had the gap too large, well then the part would it'll just wobble in here and be all loose. But if I had the gap too tight, well then I couldn't move that part, and it became very frustrating. So the solution I ended up coming up with was I simply made the angles different. So on the inside of the model, it was a wider angle, and then for this part it was a sharper angle. And by doing that, I was able to keep the hinge locked into place, so there was no lateral movement. And then it also then allows the wing to spin freely without it wobbling in the joint. So it's nice and tight, but it still spins freely. So if you are modelling and looking for a way to do a hinge, that system works really well. So I was very happy with the way that worked out. Now, another thing that I did print this week, oh not this week, but just recently, is a cap for my lens. So what's happening here is I've got these ND filters on the front of my lenses, which you can, I don't know if you can see that darkening. So it gets lighter and darker. So it's a variable ND filter, and it's mainly used for shooting video, so I can keep my frame rate where I want it to be. This is an old 50mm Pentax film lens, and it's a great lens. I love this lens. It's really good. But the lens cap no longer fits because the filter thread size is larger on this ND filter. So I designed up this cap that I can just quickly slip on and slip over the ND filter just to protect it while it's in my bag. And yeah, it works really well. It just sits on there. It's quick and easy to take off, and I just store it in my bag like so, and it works quite well. How are we going in the chat? Let's have a look. Oh, thank you very much, Tinko. I hope I'm pronouncing Tinko correctly. I don't use ZBrush. I use Blender, and it's. don't know if you know my history, my background. I've been working in the animation industry for 20 years, and I started in 1999 using Studio Max, or it might have been called Max there. I can't remember what the actual name of it was. And I started on that, but then I went to study it was in end of 98. I went to study in 1999, and the course I was doing was 2D, 3D animation plus multimedia, and they were using Lightwave. And so for that course, I was just Lightwave crazy, using it like 24/7. And then once I finished my course, I then went on and did a bit of lecturing in multimedia. Did some sessional lecturing at Swinburne National School of Design in Melbourne, and then went to work in the industry the year after that. And I used Lightwave for about 5 years, and I got to a point, like, if you're using a package for long enough, you get to a point where it's just second nature. And using modeling, rigging, animating, rendering, lighting, you get to learn all those skills, and then all those skills are then transferable from package to package. So for the first 5 years, I was doing television commercial work for local TV stations, and then I started picking up work in 2004. I picked up some work on Halo 2, the game, doing some just picking up some shots. They were sort of was for Bungie Studios in Texas, and they were trying to get the game finished, so they were picking up animators from all over the world and using them as freelance. And so I ended up animating a few shots on that, and I had to switch to Maya for those shots. So back then it was Autodesk Maya. It was Alias Wavefront Maya. Now it's Autodesk. And I've still got manuals and software that I've bought from for all those packages, and now they're just used as a place where I can put my mouse, because I'm using a stand-up desk, but I'm 6'2", 6'2" tall, and it's too short, so I need to just pick it up a little bit. And it's just you spend all this money on software over the years, tens of thousands of dollars. Like when I first started 3D animation, a license of Alias Wavefront Maya was $27,000 or something ridiculous like that, and Softimage was another one that was $35,000. And it's just, I didn't spend that much money. I bought the lowest spec version of the software I could afford. So after years of spending, Lightwave was several $1,000s. When I bought those licenses. After years of spending so much money on software, I just said, no more. I'm not spending any more money on software, and went looking for open source alternatives, and started using Blender. I used Maya working at studios in Melbourne, Sydney, freelance, and for international customers, based out of this little studio right here, for about 5 years. And there again, modelling, rigging, animating, lighting, the full works. And then after about 2008, 2009, I started, probably about 2008, I really started getting into Blender, and it was pretty simple interface and things like that, but I could see that it had a lot of power for what it was. And I just started using Blender, and then I could use it for sculpting, I could use it for doing parts, I could use it for animating television commercials, creating characters, and just use it for everything, and it was free. And so for many years I just donated money to their short films, and just did the subscription, you know, the $12 or 12 euros a month or whatever it was, just to support the Blender team and help them out. And it's now software that you know, I had to do some shots, some work a couple of years ago on it was on, I was animation director, or one animation director on the Blinky Bill TV series, which is this series right here. And there was a director and animation supervisor, and they needed people to fill in to help get the episodes out, because there's something like 80 episodes we had to put out. So I ended up working on about 12 episodes, and that's the project that sort of got me back to using Maya specifically for this. And then I went and did a bit of work on Maya the Bee, the film, as well. And so yeah, if I have to work on a project like this or work for a studio that uses Maya, well then I'll use Maya. Although I do find it's getting harder and harder to get back into it after being, you know, I'm getting older, and you get sort of set in your ways and using software and things like that. So yeah, it's the reason why I switched to open source software. And the other thing is, I've got I have to keep an eye on the chat as well. The Blender open source software led me on to other software, and now I use GIMP for photo editing. I use, where are we? Got to refresh my memory what they are. I use Darktable for editing my photos, and it's fantastic software. And I suppose that's a Lightroom alternative. Audacity I use for audio. Cura I use for 2D animation and drawing, and the list goes on. I just use as much open source software as I can, and I find it fantastic. I just saw there's a couple of questions that I might have missed. Emmanuel. Hi Emmanuel, how are you going? Pleased to meet you. Any work in video games? Yes, Halo 2 is the game, and I can show you. It was only I did a small bit of animation for Halo 2, but I can show you the cutscenes. It was mainly on a couple of cutscenes, and I'll queue up the video. So you can. I'll show you. It's only a very small little bit, but I'll show you the bit that I worked on. So it's this sequence of shots coming up now, and it's where the ships come in and they drop these creatures out of the bottom of a ship, and there's a hero character that throws out his sword. And I'm not sure how this is working sync-wise, but or if you can hear me for that matter. Can you hear the desktop audio, just out of curiosity? Just let me know in the comments below. Or in the chat, sorry. Where are we? Hang on a minute, let me just got to find the right spot. 32, 38, all right. Sorry, I'm just queuing up to the... I'd gone a bit far. All right. Okay. Okay, try this. Yeah, so these drop ships come in and they drop some of the characters out, and then there's a hero that throws out his sword, and I had to just pick up those shots. Just nothing amazing, but at least I got to work on Halo 2, which was awesome. And this is just the scene that's leading up to the drop ship. So the ships come in, and the shot I worked on, my shot, is coming up shortly. I thought I'd queued it up a bit closer. Where are we? Yep, this shot here. So the ships come in, and as they come in to land, they'll drop out some grunts, I think they're called, and then the hero will drop out as well. So this shot right here, this is my shot I worked on. And that's it. So yeah, looking at those sorts of things, that was 2002, 2003. I think the game was, I might have been 2003. The game was released 2004 from memory, and yeah, looking at those, it's pretty cool. The other game that I worked on was Scooby-Doo, which was a kids animated kids one, and that one 2805. Alright, just get it queued up. Okay, so now I will get better at this sort of thing as I do more streams. So this is my first one, so just keep that in mind. Now this shot, this is Scooby-Doo. I can't remember the title of the game, and I animated a few shots for the game, cut sequences, and I also did idles, where the characters are just standing there, just waiting for an action to happen. So this is the section that I animated. She was a lot of fun to work on, this character, and to animate this one. And so there, that's just a bit of a glimpse on some of the shots I've worked on there. And so I've done a heap of television work over the 20 years and shows, and I've probably forgotten more of the stuff that I've worked on than I can remember, but yeah, it's just a bit of a glimpse as to what I've been doing. So now, I'm just looking at the chat, see if there's any questions I've missed. I see there's something in... do you speak Spanish or Portuguese in Argentina? Yeah, let me know what language your native language is over there. All right, so what I might do now is go on to showing you some Blender tips and tricks, if you like. And I thought what I might do just for this video is just make a quick vase or vase, as you may say it in your country, and just show you how quickly and easy it is to make something like that in Blender. So I'm going to load up Blender 2.79 and I'll turn on my screencast keys so you can just follow along what key presses I'm making bottom left here. Now I use Blender 2.79 purely because of the Boolean modifier. It's not where it needs to be. Well, they actually dropped the carve modifier out of Blender 2.8, so that's why I use Blender 2.9. But so what we can do is just I'll show you how quickly and easy it is to create a vase in Blender, and a couple little tricks that you can use yourself to do the same thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is just add a cylinder. If you come over here, I'm going to set the vertices to say 130, just for the sake of this exercise, and I'm going to just check the geometry. I think that's right, that's fine. So what I'm also going to do now is to switch to edit mode and select these top vertices and just delete those. And what I'll also do, you can see here that my origin is set to the 0 ground plane, but my geometry is down here. So I'm going to set that back so the origin is at the base of my mesh, which is going to be the bottom of my vase. So what I'll do is switch to edit mode, press A to select all those vertices, and Shift S, cursor to selected, tab back to object mode, and I've got a keyboard shortcut which is Control Shift Alt C, and origin to 3D cursor. So now the origin is at the cursor, but you can also do it this other way. Just go object and this is object. It's been so long since I've actually used up here on the tool tab, set origin. So you can just come over here and go set origin and origin to 3D cursor. So it works the same way. Am I hiding that? Yeah, it's up just underneath my... Hang on, I'll switch to desktop. Okay, so it's just here, set origin, and then you've got the same settings. So once I've got that set there, I'll come back to here and switch to my side view. And I just have to press Alt G and it will snap it back to 0. And the other thing I have set up is just a reference on this second layer, which is the build volume of my 3D printer. So that's something you can just set up yourself. And all that is just a cube set to the dimensions of my build volume, which you can see over here is 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters by 18.6 centimeters. And I've just got the visibility set to wire, just under this tab setting here. Come down, and the maximum draw type I've set to, it's normally solid, but I've just set it to wire. So that's all I'll see. And this just gives me a bit of a reference to see how big my object's going to be in my scene. So I'm going to scale that up to there, and then Control A to apply that scale. And I'll switch back to layer 1 and yeah, go from there. So now that I have this set up here, what I want to do is select, I want to create a vase which is sort of shapes like this and has corrugations, if you like, all around the side of the vase. So I can do that by a little trick, and I can just select one vertice, skip a couple of vertices and select another one, and then go Control Shift plus to repeat that pattern of selecting those vertices. Now it hasn't matched up perfectly, but that's alright. Yeah, that'll depend on the number of vertices you've got, but for the sake of this exercise I think this will be fine. So now I'm also going to turn on my proportional editing mode, so for fall off, which is just down here, and just enable that, and I'll scale in those vertices. And you can see here I'm using my middle mouse wheel to roll off the effect of that scale, so I can have it smaller or larger. I'll go somewhere around there, and then what we can do is select all the vertices and just extrude it up. So now I have that shape. Now you can see here, if you see your mesh is dark like this, that means the normals are the wrong way around, and that's really easy to fix. So I'm just going to select all the faces in edit mode, come down to mesh, normals, and recalculate outside. So now that's fine as it is there. While I'm here, I'll just switch back to my second layer. Yep, that's fine size wise. And I'll now put some shape into it really quickly and get it looking really good. So I'm going to press Control 3 just to add a subdivision modifier, and I might just bump that up a bit just so it's smoother, maybe not too much. Now to hold our edges back, what we need to do is just Alt click an edge and set the mean crease to 1, Alt click this edge and set its mean crease to 1, and that's just over here. So now we have a smooth cylinder, corrugated cylinder, with hard edges top and bottom to hold those edges. So now to create some shape, all I'm going to do is just Control R, roll a few segments into it, hit enter. I'm going to select this top loop, and I've still got proportional editing turned on. I'm just going to rotate on that loop on the Z axis, so R, Z, and then use my middle mouse wheel to roll in the amount of deformation I want. Probably we'll try something like that. So that's looking pretty good. And now to get that shape I want, which is just tapers in at the bottom for the vase, you could send it off to the printer as it is now. All I'm going to do is just switch back to edit mode, select the base and scale that in until I'm happy with the shape. So I can have it pretty thick at top, or taper it in more, maybe do something like that. Or what I could do is perhaps even keep it there and scale this section here in. Switch to edges and just scale that in. So there it is. There's our vase ready to print. Now, what did it take? A couple of minutes. What we'll do is I'll send it over to Cura, and will actually I'll worry about saving it. I'll export it and send it to Cura. So I'll just go File, Export STL, and I'm going to turn on Scene Selection Only. So that's just so that if you've got, like I'll have a scene where I've got iterations of the same model within the same scene, and so this just ensures that what you're exporting is only what you have selected. And so it doesn't matter how messy your scene is, you just select what you want to export and it only grabs what you've selected. So selection only, scale I set to 1000. On previous versions of Cura, the very first version of Cura I got with the printer was Cura 14 or 1314. It would take a scale of 1, but the newer versions of Cura and Prusa Slicer, basically any of the modern slicers I've tested, I have to set the scale to 1000 coming out of Blender, and I'll just tick on scene units. So we'll just give it a name. I'll call it Vase 2, whichever you prefer. Export the STL. And what I'll do is switch back to here, and I'll just load Cura because it can take a little bit to load. And yeah, I'll just, while that's loading, I'll have a little look at the stream, see what's going on in there. Yes, so yeah, I'll print the vase in vase mode. I'll show you how to do that. So now that we're back here, I'll just bring in that vase. So there it is, ready to slice. Now, when you're creating objects for it's called spiralizing the outer contour, which is vase mode in Cura, you need to just have the mesh as a sealed piece. You can't have the top open, so you just have the top and bottom sealed, and the software will do Cura, the slicer will do the rest. So I'm going to find Spiralize the outer contour, and all I have to do is just up here in the search area just type in, or start typing Spiralize, and here we are here, and just make sure they're ticked on and slice it. Now I've just got it slicing at my default settings, which is 0.16 millimeters for here, and let's have a look at the preview, and there it is, ready to print. So you can see, like, I find Blender really powerful for doing, well, anything I need to do, from something as simple as this to, I'll show you a scene from, that you might not know, or you may have, if you've been following me, you'll know, but my Scared Robot series. So what I'll do is I'll load up a scene from that series I'm working on, and while it's loading, I'll have a quick look at the Spanish. Awesome. Okay, awesome. Quick look at the chat. All right, so now I'll just switch over back to my desktop, and you can see this is currently a scene I'm working on for my Scared Robot series. So you can see the level of complexity that you can use Blender for is absolutely fantastic, and I don't know how many millions of polygons I've got going on in here, but at any time I can just see a real-time preview of what it's going to look like rendered, and I don't know why. Still loading. Yeah, there we go. I was wondering why there was no colour on my robot. So you can see here, this is the next episode that I'm working on from my Scared Robot series, and when we pull out and have a look, it's I've got the whole warehouse there basically, and I can just work in that environment and animate my characters, and anytime just have a look at how it's going to look, and see how the volumetrics are going to work, and things like that. So I have had I've had a look at CAD packages, and I've tried and dabbled in them, but I find for me with Blender I can do this sort of thing, full character animation to broadcast quality outputs, to simple models, to parts for things, like this here for instance is a part for my motorcycle, and what it does is it just bumps the seat up by this amount, because the seat on the motorcycle has a forward slant, and after a while it starts to get a sort of bit annoying. You sort of keep sliding forward to the bike. So I saw on the internet people making this sort of bracket up in steel and just bumping the front of the seat up. So what I've done is I've just made it modelled it in Blender and then 3D printed it, and I can do whatever I want to do in Blender, whereas I can't in a CAD package. I can only do CAD things, and so that's why I just find that it works best for me. And the other thing is, I did do a test between Fusion 360, SolidWorks, and Blender. And what we did was, this is that, as you may have seen the video, this is the parts. This one here was modelled in Blender. This one here was modelled in SolidWorks. And I have another one somewhere which was modelled by someone in Fusion 360. And each one, we were working off a dimension drawing, and each one took around about 20 minutes to model or something like that in each of the packages. And what I got them to do was to output the STL files, which they did, and send them to me, and I opened them all up and compared them and laid one file on top of the other, and I could see, I can't see any difference. They're identical. So although the workflow is different, for what I learnt was, although the workflow is different between Blender, SolidWorks, and Fusion 360, the output is exactly the same. You still have to output an STL file to 3D print it, and comparing the STL files, there's no difference. The only difference that comes into it is your output resolution. So how much geometry, like in SolidWorks, and I think Fusion 360, you can specify how much resolution to output when you export your STL file. Same as Blender, it's just it's whatever resolution you work in. And it's I find it fantastic. So this wasn't meant to be a Blender sales pitch, but I just use it for everything, and it just works fantastic. I'm just going to go have another look in the stream if there's any more questions. No. If you're enjoying the stream, please give it a like. I'd appreciate that. And if you want to see more of this sort of thing, then also please let me know. Now, what I will do while I'm here is show you just head over to I've got to remember to type quietly because it's probably annoying you, the keyboards and the clicks and things. Yeah, so if you aren't aware, I do have a blog where I share my files, and that is this blog right here, and that's printverygood.com, and I try and upload, you know, I'll make a file and upload it, and actually this week I've got a little project, a little thing I want to make for my granddaughter, and I think you'll enjoy printing it once I've finished, and I'll aim to upload that end of next week. And the other thing is, you know, depends how this live stream goes. If it gets views and people want to see more, then please leave a note in the comments, let me know. But if it's not for you, that's fine, don't worry about it. But if there is enough interest, then I'll do another one, and but if not, that's cool, you know. Whatever will be will be. But anyway, this is the all my free files, and I've also got this is one I'm working on, which I need to, it's almost there, but I've got to get back to it and get this one finished. And this is Plava Laguna from Fifth Element, the movie, and yeah, so I've got to get that one finished, but it's almost there. So if you're looking for free files, there's heaps there, and there's sure to be something that you might be interested in. And also, I've just lost my train of thought, sorry. Yeah, so I'll update that with as many files as possible. When I first started the channel, my goal was to have 100 free files on Thingiverse, and I decided that this is probably a better way of doing it, just where I've got control of the files. No one can sort of, you know, close the account or stop sharing the files or anything. I have full control of the sharing, and I'm now up to about 80 files, and I do want to hit that 100 free files target, so keep an eye on that. And yeah, and while I'm on this, if you are on this site, if you come up to the top left here, you can see there are options, different ways of viewing this this web page, and all you have to do is just click up here, and you can actually have a look at different layouts for this web page. So if you want to see all the free files at once, you can do so just by selecting flip card, and then you can just have a look through and choose what you want. But by default, it's set on magazine. All right, now what else did I have on my rundown? Oh yes, Blender 2.79, which is what I use, and Blender 2.91. Now 2.91 has just been released as a beta, was alpha, now as a beta, and if you head over to blender.org, you can see, actually no, yeah, it's still beta. Where are we? Yep, and come down to download, and we want, where are we? We want the experimental demo versions. So I'll go back, because I thought there was a link to the, oh here we go, Blender 2.91 beta, yeah, it's on the front page. So click on that, and you can get Blender 2.91 beta right now, and also Blender 2.92 alpha is there. Now the good thing about Blender 2.91 is that it's had the Boolean modifier worked on to the point where there's now a section which is called accurate. So it was bmesh and accurate. Now it's accurate. I'll load up. What I'll do is I'll load up save. I'll load up 2.8. Sorry, 2.9. I'll load up 2.79, which is already there, and I'll load up 2.91. And we'll switch to the desktop. Just had a sneaky little drink there because my voice is getting a bit dry. What I wanted to show you was the differences between where are we? So this one here is, this is 2.91 beta, and what I'll do is this one here is 2.9, and then we have 2.79. So I'm just going to do a new scene. Now I'll create a cube. Let's switch that to that. And then I'll go to the others, cube and cube. Now with Blender 2.79, I'll just duplicate that. I'll turn on my screencast key so you can see what I'm doing. Duplicate that and just intersect those two. If I wanted to do a Boolean on this, a Boolean modifier, I had, if you can see, yeah, you had two options, bmesh and carve. Now, the difference that I always see them as, and the way I see it is, bmesh is good for doing an approximation Boolean. So if things aren't lining quite up ideally, it'll still do the Boolean operation and give you a result. Excuse me. But with the carve modifier, which is your other option, it won't. So if things aren't lining up properly, the carve modifier will just say, I can't do it, I can't get a result. And you sort of think, well, that means it's not as good as bmesh. But when it comes to 3D printing and exporting these files as STL files, you really need the more accurate Boolean modifier, because what will happen is if you've got a more complex shape and you use the bmesh modifier, it looks fine in your viewport, it looks like it's all worked really well. But then when you export the STL and open it up into your slicer, that's when you see there's geometry missing and it's just a bit of a mess. So that's why I always use the carve modifier, because if it works with the carve modifier, then I know that when I export that STL file and bring it into my slicer, the file will be solid. It'll be all correct and there'll be no errors, unless there's, you've put non-manifold geometry or something in there. So that's why I've always used carve. Now, when they went to Blender 2.8, which is this one. Yep, so I'm not sure if 2.9, let's have a look what 2.9's got in the way of modifiers. Yeah, and so 2.8, 2.9, they dropped the carve modifier altogether, and you were just left with what I suspect is just B mesh, but you know, well, it is B mesh, I reckon, and yeah, so your Boolean will work. You'll look like you've got a great result, and if you've spent a lot of time, hours and hours on a model, you don't want to get to the slicer and find out that it's not working, and you can't just then, you know, well, you probably could export all the pieces over to OBJ. You can't go back to Blender 2.79. You can't go backwards from 2.8, 2.9, but you could export OBJ files, open them up into 2.79, and then try and use the carve modifier that way, which I wouldn't recommend doing at all. So I got caught out many times, or a few times, before I decided no, I just wasn't going to use it for 3D printing. For animation, all that sort of stuff, yeah, fantastic, but not for 3D printing. So now with 2.91, I'll have to look up who the programmer was that did all the work on the Booleans, and I'll if I do another live stream, I'll mention it in that live stream. But in 2.91, which is this one, if we go to our Booleans, I'll just do another one. Our modifier, sorry, and add a Boolean. Now you can see we've got fast and exact. Now I reckon, I don't know, I'll have to look it up and find out, but I reckon fast is B mesh, and I have a sneaky suspicion that exact was carve. So, but I will look up to see what that's all about. So here again, if I'm using, I'm doing testing, and it's looking pretty good, and I think 2.91 will be the version that gets me off Blender 2.79 altogether, especially with this modifier. The testing I've done so far, it's looking and behaving exactly the same as the carve modifier, so that's looking really good. So I'd recommend that if you're using, you know, Blender, just keep in mind 2.91 is still a beta. I find, for me personally, I found the betas to be very good in stability wise, but you may encounter an issue where, you know, you do find some instability. Having said that, I would personally happily switch to 2.91 and test it out right now. Okay. The other thing that I did some testing, and I found that the way it handles curved corners is a little bit different too. I'll see if I can. What version is this one? 2.9. I'll close this one. I'll close 2.79. Okay, so this is 2.91. Just double check that. Yep. So with previous versions of Blender, creating a, does this got, see if I can do, no, I can't, doesn't look like I can share. No, it doesn't look like I can share my keyboard shortcuts, but it's okay, I'll just read them out. So I've got a cube here, switch to edit mode, select two edges, Control B to start a bevel, and middle mouse button to roll in some segments. So now I have this shape here. What I'm going to do now is to do another bevel on the top and bring that in. Now yeah, there we go. Yeah, if you can see, this seems 2.91 seems to resist it more, but it still does it. You see, if you push it too far, it crosses over. And I wish whoever's writing the code on this that when it gets to this point here, let me just when it gets to this point here, where on the middle of that corner, that it gets to a point where all the vertices touch up, but they never actually touch. I'm sure they could write it in the programming that they don't cross over, because this is one of the biggest annoyances I have with working in Blender, and I work around it all the time. But surely they could write something in the script where those innermost vertices never touch, so that you'll never get that crossover. Excuse me. I'm sure if it was an easy fix, they could do it, but it just seems to me that even if it got to a point where if they did touch, they merged automatically, that would just save and solve so many problems. So yeah, I just thought I'd just check that and try that. But that issue is across all versions, and hopefully it's just a matter of time before they sort that out. Alright, so I think I'll just have a little look in the chat. I'm starting to lose my voice now. Hi Zava, how you going? How long have we been going? Hour and 12 minutes. Okay. Well, I think that I might wind this up now, and I can see on the screen there that there's a bit of a delay now between what I'm saying and what's showing on the live view. So I'm learning. It's all a learning process for me. So yeah, any questions? If you have any questions, shoot them in the chat. Yeah. Good night, Tinko. Yeah, and yeah, definitely send me some pics. I'd love to see anyone that prints any of my models. That'd be awesome. All right, so I'll let that just sit there for a minute and see if any more questions pop up. If not, then I'll wind up the stream. But yeah, so just remember, if you're looking for my free 3D models, head over to printverygood.com. Like I say, there's 80 or so models there. If you want to see more live streams, then please subscribe to the channel and give this stream a like if you like, and let me know that you want to see more. It's just this first stream's just been a bit of a testing exercise, getting everything set up and making sure everything's working, and going from there. I'll just pop back over to the chat and have a little look. Looks all quiet there. So yeah, I think that I might call this stream done. So to all those that popped in and had a look, thank you very much. Thanks for stopping by and checking out what this is all about. And this week I'll be working on that little file or little model for my granddaughter. I'll put updates over at printverygood.com as I'm working on that. So I'm going to treat that like my social media outlet. And that's just, if you just head over to printverygood.com, you can check it out over there. The using OBS is pretty cool in what you can do, all the different features and things that it'll do. So I've got a heap of things set up just in case. All right, I'll call it quits here. Just check, make sure. Yeah, no more questions in the chat, so that's all good. So again, thank you for tuning in. I still have a lot more stuff I can show you and talk about, and if you have something that you'd like to see me talk about next stream, if I do a next stream, then please put those in the comments below, and they can be topics that I can bring up in the next stream. All right, now I will try and get my outro working and see if I can coordinate that and go from there. So thanks again, everybody, and bye for now.